Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश् भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिके ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 31, Movement of Living Entities. So, currently we are at text 44. Text 44. Jivo hi asya anugaddeho bhutendriya manomayah tannirodhasya maranam avirbhavastu sambhavah. Translation.
In this way, the living entity gets a suitable body with a material mind and senses according to his fruitive activities. When the reaction of his particular activity comes to an end, that end is called death. And when a particular type of reaction begins, that beginning is called birth. Purport. From time immemorial, the living entity travels in the different species of life and the different planets almost perpetually. This process is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Brahmayan sarva bhutani yantra rudani māyā. Under the spell of Maya, everyone is wandering throughout the universe on the carriage of the body offered by the material energy. Materialistic life involves a series of actions and reactions. It is a long film. It is a long film spool of actions and reactions, and one lifespan is just a flash in such a reactionary show. When a child is born, it is to be understood that his particular type of body is the beginning of another set of activities. And when an old man dies, it is to be understood that one set of reactionary activities is finished. We can see that because of different reactionary activities, one man is born in a rich family and another is born in a poor family. Although both of them are born in the same place, at the same moment, and in the same atmosphere, one who is carrying pious activity with him is given a chance to take his birth in a rich or pious family, and one who is carrying impious activity is given a chance to take birth in a lower or poor family. The change of body means a change to a different field of activities. Similarly, when the body of the boy changes into that of a youth, the boyish activities change into youthful activities. It is clear that a particular body is given to the living entity for a particular type of activity. This process is going on perpetually from a time which is impossible to trace out. Vaishnava poets say, therefore, anadi karma phale, which means that these actions and reactions of one's activity cannot be traced, for they may even continue from the last millennium of Brahma's birth to the next millennium. We have seen the example in the life of Narada Muni. In one millennium, he was the son of a maid servant, and in the next millennium, he became a great sage. Hare Krishna.
Kapila Muni explains here, this is how the transmigration keeps on happening. In this way, the living entity gets suitable body. And suitable body means there is a set of material mind and senses according to his past fruitive activities. So thus, birth means that is the beginning of particular type of reactionary activities, and death means conclusion of particular type of reactionary activities. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that Srila Prabhupada explains that the living entity is changing the body, and here is the very detailed explanation of that verse: Karmana Daiva Netrena. How under the supervision of Daiva and according to one's karma, the living entity jantur dehopapadyate. In fact, this shloka we have read in this very chapter. Karmana Daiva Netrena jantur dehopapadyate. So when we receive a particular type of body, there is a reactionary set which is already stored within the body, right? A particular experience is already stored within the body, and therefore this is also one reason why one should be quite sober when set of things are happening in one's life. Just like, if you book a ticket, say for this yatra, somebody wants to go from Mumbai to Vrindavan. Then when you book a ticket which is Mumbai to Vrindavan by bus, then you are already assigning yourself for a particular type of a body, particular type of a experience. Similarly, if you book a ticket which is from which is a flight ticket Mumbai to Delhi, and from Delhi you want to come, you are particularly, simply by booking that ticket, what is happening is you are assigning yourself to a particular type of experience. Similarly, when a living entity receives a body, he is assigning himself or herself for a particular type of experience. And that's why when certain things go very highly right in our life, we are not too excited or elated, right? And when certain things go very wrong in our life, it is not that the world has come crashing down, and the we are like so dejected. One is going through the ups and downs of the life, which are largely defined at the point of one's birth point. Somebody will say, is there no free will? Yes, free will is there. But free will affect, generally what free will affect is our response to the situations. But the situations will largely come according to one's past life activities. Free will affect our response to those situations and thus creating new karma. Bhakti, to the degree it is intense, tivrena bhakti yogena, to that degree karmani nirdahati kintuja bhakti bhaja. And this is how, understanding all this, a devotee is very sober in trying situations. Right? He is not a person who is like very, very depressed one day, very extremely elated another day, and confused on the third day. No. And such a person engages in devotional service very systematically. And there is the verse of Brahmaji comes, Tatenu kampa sushamikshmanu bhunjana evatma kritam vipakam ridvag vapurbhir vidahan namaste jivetayo muktipade sadayabhak. That atma kritam vipakam, realizing that the activities, the situations which are arising in my life, they are atma kritam vipakam, right? And this is how a devotee, by understanding the philosophy of karma very, very well, becomes very sober and becomes very accepting. That doesn't mean that he is not progressive. That doesn't mean that he has lost his drive in the life. No, he is progressive. He has a drive in the life. Arjuna is also, one name of Arjuna is also Dhananjay. He was always conquering the wealth. Pandavas were always doing Rajshri Yagya and Ashwamedh Yagya. And at the same time, when there are rehearsals in one's life, the downside in one's life, they are not, one is not depressed or dejected. Realizing that, yeah, this is the game of life I am going through. And Prabhupada says this is how the reactionary state of work comes in one's life. On the same time, same day, somebody is born in Dharavi, where the child is born in Dharavi who doesn't have the next meal, and 20 kilometers from there, another child is born to Ambani or Adani, who is like becomes the owner of billions of dollars simply upon birth by inheritance, right? So somebody may say, is it a chance? No, sir, it is not a chance. The the living entity who is supposed to come with very highly pious activities are given those facilities, and thus one set of reactionary karma is going to open for one person, and another set of reactionary karma is going to open for another person. Prabhupada says, not only from life to life, even within this life, one can see set of different karmas opening up. Just like when somebody is a child, then they will be, playing. Then one goes to school. Now the karmas are more into studies. Then one goes to job. The karmas are more into, the performance in the job. Then one becomes a family man. The karmas are more into taking care of the family. Then one becomes retired man. The karmas are more into. So the sets of reactionary karmas, they are changing even within one's life, right? And this process goes on perpetually. Anadi karma phale. That actions and reactions, they are simply happening. And Prabhupada writes here, as such actions and reactionary show, one life is simply one flash, right? Of course, this flash of life, we have to take it seriously, and we have to also take it a little more callous. So when it is duty, one should take very seriously. When it is man apaman, one should take it little callous. And this is how one handles. And Prabhupada says not only this, and this happens across the lifetimes of Brahma, days of Brahma and the lifetimes of Brahma. And across the days of Brahma, we have the example of Narada Muni, who was born as a Dasiputra in the previous day of Brahma. And that was the conclusion of that kalpa. And then the next day of Brahma began, and Narada Muni was born as great Saint Narada with full memory of his previous life intact. So this is the actions and reactions. Very, very beautiful purport, Srila Prabhupada writes. Text 45. Dravyopalabdhisthanasya dravyaiksha ayogyata yada panchatvam ahammanat utpatti dravya darshanam yathakshno dravya avayavam darshanam yogyata yada tadaiva chakshusho drushtur drishtatvam yogyatanayo. Translation?
Translation: when the eyes lose their power to see color or form due to morbid affliction of the optic nerve, the sense of sight becomes deadened. The living entity, who is the seer of both the eyes and the sight, loses his power of vision. In the same way, when the physical body, the place where perception of objects occur, is rendered incapable of perceiving, that is known as death. When one begins to view the physical body as one's very self, that is called birth. Purport: when one says, I see, this means that he sees with his eyes or with his spectacles. He sees with the instrument of sight. If the instrument of sight is broken or becomes diseased or incapable of acting, then he, as the seer, also ceases to act. Similarly, in this material body, at the present moment, the living soul is acting, and when the material body, due to its incapability to function, ceases, he also ceases to perform his reactionary activities. When one's instrument of action is broken and cannot function, that is called death. Again, when one gets a new instrument for action, that is called birth. This process of birth and death is going on at every moment by constant bodily change. The final change is called death, and acceptance of a new body is called birth. That is the solution to the question of birth and death. Actually, the living entity has neither birth nor death, but is eternal. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, na hanyate hanyamane sharire. The living entity never dies, even after the death or annihilation of this material body. Hare Krishna.
Further, Kapila Muni explains that when the eyes lose their power to see the color or the form, due to his morbid affections in the optic nerve, the sense of sight becomes deadened. The living entity, who is the seer of the both eyes and the sight, loses his power of vision. In the same way, so what is the example is given? When somebody, there is a soul is watching the world through eyes, right? So the soul is watching the world through one's eyes or probably or one's spectacles, right? So when one is not able to, when the spectacles are broken or eyes are, the not functioning, then the soul ceases to see. Correct, right? Soul will not able to see because the eyes are not working. You close the eyes, are we able to see? No. And when the eyes go out of the order and they are like deadened, then the soul will not able to see. Similarly, when the physical body is not able to relate with the outside world, what happens is that is called as death, Prabhupada says. And when and and when the physical body is again able to relate with the outside world, that is called as birth. And this birth and death is literally happening every moment for a living entity. Correct? Every moment it is always happening because and Prabhupada says the final change is called as death. But actually, the living entity, the soul per se, has neither birth nor death. Na hanyate hanyamane sharire. Correct? Jaya na jayate mriyate va kadachin. Neither birth for the living, for the soul, neither there is a death, but simply he is entrapped into this conditioned life. Text 47. तस्मान्न कार्यसन्न्यस्त्रो न कार्पण्यं न सम्भ्रमः बुद्ध्वा जीवगतिं धीरो मुक्तसङ्गच्चलेतिह. Translation.
Therefore, one should not view death with horror, nor have nor have recourse to defining the body as soul, nor give way to exaggeration in enjoying the bodily necessities of life. Realizing the true nature of the living entity, one should move about in the world free from attachment and steadfast in purport. A sane person who has understood the philosophy of life and death is very upset upon hearing the horrible hellish condition of life in the womb of the mother or outside of the mother. But one has to make a solution to the problems of life. A sane man should understand the miserable condition of this material world. Without being unnecessarily upset, he should try to find out if there is a remedy. The remedial measures can be understood when one associates with persons who are liberated. It must be understood who is actually liberated. The liberated person is described in Bhagavad Gita, one who engages in an uninterrupted devotional service to the Lord, having surpassed the stringent laws of material nature, is understood to be situated in Brahman. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is beyond material creation. It is admitted even by impersonalists like Shankaracharya that Narayana is transcendental to this material creation. As such, when one actually engages in the service of the Lord in various forms, either Narayana or Radha Krishna or Sitarama, he is understood to be on the platform of liberation. The Bhagavatam also confirms that liberation means to be situated in one's constitutional position. Since the living entity is eternally the servitor of the Supreme Lord, when one seriously and sincerely engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he is situated in the position of liberation. One should try to associate with a liberated person, and then the problems of life, namely birth and death, can be solved. While discharging devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, one should not be miserly. He should not unnecessarily show that he has renounced this world. Actually, renunciation is not possible. If one renounces his palatial building and goes to a forest, there is actually no renunciation. For the palatial building is the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the forest is also the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If he changes from one property to another, that does not mean that he renounces. He was never the proprietor of either the palace or the forest. Renunciation necessitates renouncing the false understanding that one can lord it over material nature. When one renounces this false attitude and renounces the puffed up position that he is also God, that is real renunciation. Otherwise, there is no meaning of renunciation. Rupa Goswami advises that if one renounces anything which could be applied in the service of the Lord and does not use it for that purpose, that is called Phalgu Vairagya, insufficient or false renunciation. Everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, Everything can be engaged in the service of the Lord. Nothing should be used for one's sense gratification. That is real renunciation. Nor should one unnecessarily increase the necessities of the body. We should be satisfied with the whatever is offered and supplied by Krishna without much personal endeavor. We should spend our time executing devotional service in Krishna consciousness. That is the solution to the problem of life and death.
Tasman karya sannyastro. Therefore, Kapila Muni says, one should not view death as horror. What is death? It is change of the reactionary set. And so, because now Devavati is going to approach that particular phase, now the son Kapila is conveying that, my dear mother, do not see this as a horror, nor have renounced to defining the body as a soul. Second, nor have a way to exaggeration of enjoying bodily necessities of life. Right. So either be extremely afraid of the death, or just concluding that there is nothing greater than the body and just enjoy the body, or misunderstand the body to be the soul. Right. Realizing the true nature of the living entity, one should move about in the world free from attachment and steadfast in purpose. Right. Dhiraha. Very beautiful verse. Na karpanyam, na sambhrama. Free from attachment and steadfast in purpose. Very beautiful words. So, what this means is, because we are knowledgeable doesn't mean that the knowledge is not leading to inaction. Knowledge is leading to action. Or detachment is not leading to inaction. Detachment is leading to very purposeful action. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, a sane man, we understand the philosophy of life and death, becomes very upset to know all this. And people say also that, Prabhuji, aren't your Bhagavad Gita or lectures that you speak, and typically the ISKCON people, we speak, just giving the Bhagavad Gita as it is, without any flowery language. Aren't you pessimistic? And it is not about being pessimistic, it is about being realistic and facing the realism with the process of devotional service. So Prabhupada says here, by understanding the truths of life, one should not become unnecessarily upset. One should find a remedy. And what is the remedy? The remedy is association of great personalities. Right. And the remedy is association of the liberated souls, and through them engaging in devotional service. And when one is engaged in such uninterrupted devotional service through the medium of a liberated soul or the guru, what happens is that one will find real purpose in one's life. Although, the life is going to throw many challenges and many ups and downs in everybody's life. Srila Prabhupada further writes that the Supreme Lord is beyond this material creation, as it is accepted even by Adi Shankaracharya. Narayano Paro Vyaktat. And therefore, this service should be directed towards a personality who is beyond this material creation. And the service should be directed to Lakshmi Narayan, Radha Krishna, or Sitaram, whatever the case may be. And this is how one can be positioned in one's constitutional position. What is constitutional position of a living entity? We know that Jivera Swarupa hai, Krishna Nityadas. And what is Mukti? Mukti means when one is engaged in that constitutional position. Muktir hitvan yatharupam swarupena vyavasthite. And this is how, when one seriously and sincerely, look at the word Srila Prabhupada is using here, seriously and sincerely engaging in devotional service, loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord, then one is actually in the position of liberation. Right. And thus one should try to associate with such liberated personalities, and then the problems of life, especially Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi, these problems will be solved. Prabhupada says one should not be miserly in one's life. What is not being miserly? That means one should not show unnecessarily trying to renounce the world. Prabhupada is giving different meaning of miserliness. Karpanya. What is that karpanya or krupana? That means one is simply trying to renounce. I'm renouncing this, I'm renouncing that. There was a story of a man a very rich man, and he wanted to renounce everything, and he collected all his wealth, and he was sitting on an elephant and throwing, I am renouncing my necklace, and he just threw in the in the public, and public thousands of people were telling him, become more renounced, more renowned. Prabhupada said this is a Falgu renunciation. This is a Markata Vairagya. Markata Vairagya means this is a very Falgu renunciation. Prapanchikataya buddhya harisambandhi vastunah mumukshvi parityago vairagyam falgu kataye. Such a renunciation, actually the objects which can be used in the service of the Lord, but you think I am going to renounce them, that is called as incomplete or false renunciation. What is right renunciation? Rupa Goswami writes, Anasaktasya vishayan yatharham upayunjatah nirbandha krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. That engaging whatever strengths that we have, whatever possessions that we have in the service of the Supreme Lord is called as Yukta Vairagya. So one should be aware of what is Falgu Vairagya and what is Yukta Vairagya. But then what we have to really renounce, Prabhupada writes here, that when one renounces the false attitude and the puffed up position, that is the real renunciation. Right? Otherwise, the renunciation is Falgu renunciation. And then Prabhupada says that therefore one should live happily in one's position. One should not unnecessarily increase the necessities of the body, right? And one should be satisfied with whatever is offered and supplied by the Supreme Lord without much personal endeavors. Not that one is working for 16 hours a day and trying to, again, this is again very age appropriate. Certain times in the early beginning of our careers, we may have to work for a long time, and that is perfectly justified, but not at the cost of one's spiritual life or one's personal health. And this is the solution Prabhupada writes here. Come to text 48. Samyak darshanaya buddhya yoga vairagya yuktaya māyā virajate loke charitnyasya kalevaram. Translation.
Endowed with right vision and strengthened by devotional service and a pessimistic attitude towards material identity, one should relegate his body to this illusionary world through his reason. Thus, one can be unconcerned with this material world. Purport. It is sometimes misunderstood that if one has to associate with a person engaged in devotional service, he will not be able to solve the economic problem. To answer this argument, it is described here that one has to associate with liberated persons, not directly, physically, but understanding through philosophy and logic, the problems of life. It is stated here, Samyak Darshana Buddhya. One has to see perfectly by the intelligence and yogic practice. One has to renounce this world. That renunciation can be achieved by the process of recommended in second chapter of first canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. The devotee's intelligence is always touched with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His attitude towards material existence is one of detachment, for he knows perfectly well that this material world is creation of illusionary energy. Realizing himself to be part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, the devotee discharges his devotional service and completely aloof from material action and reactions. Thus, at the end, he gives up his material body or the material energy, and as pure soul, he enters the kingdom of God. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports of third canto, 31st chapter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled Lord Kapila's Instructions on the Movement of the Living Entity. Hare Krishna.
Endowed with this vision, what is the Samyak Darshanaya, and strengthened by devotional service, Yoga Vairagya Yuktaya, māyā virajate loke charanyasya kalevaram. And the pessimistic attitude towards the material identity, and not material activity, material identity, one should relegate his body to this illusory world through his reason. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, sometimes it is misunderstood that if one associates with the person engaged in devotional service, he will not be able to solve the economic problems of life. And to answer this argument, it is described here that what is that association? So somebody will say, one devotee wanted to associate with Prabhupada. So what he was doing, he was buying wherever Prabhupada used to go. So Prabhupada is flying today from New York, from Mumbai to Los Angeles. He will buy a ticket, Mumbai to Los Angeles. He will attend Prabhupada's program there. And from Los Angeles, Prabhupada is going to Australia. He will buy a ticket from to Australia and he will attend. And then Prabhupada one day asked him, Arey, I see you everywhere. What are you doing practically? So Prabhupada writes here, associating with saintly person doesn't mean that it's physical association, but this is through samyak darshanaya. Samyak darshanaya buddhya means one has to associate through philosophy and logic and proper contribution in the mission. And then one will naturally develop the sense of vairagya. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitah Janayati Ashu Vairagyam. Very quickly there will be sense of vairagya, and then the progress will continue. Prabhupada writes here, devotee's intelligence is always in touch with the Supreme Lord, and his attitude towards material existence is that of detachment. And that's why we see Pandavas retiring very timely. And there is a chapter, Pandavas retire timely. How? Because they could see that, yes, now it is done. And in our case, we may not be able to retire per se going to forest, but one should come out of the material activity at suitable point of time in one's, the life journey. And thus one will be completely aloof from the material actions and reactions, realizing himself to be a part of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And thus one can enter the kingdom of God. So this is how we complete today, Canto 3, Chapter 31, the movement of living entities. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.